Okay, so welcome everybody to today's data science, thank you, meetup. The last one actually before the summer break. So we are really excited for this one. For those of you who've not been here, so this is the agenda. My name is Florian Türk. I'm a member of the Vienna Data Science Group board, and I'll have the honor today to be the moderator. So what we usually do, we have a short introduction about what the Vienna Data Science Group is, what we do apart from those meetups. Then we have a short introduction about what our host is doing because they're sponsoring this event. So the location and the food and the drinks are sponsored by them. Then there are the main talks, and we have very exciting topics today. We'll get into this quite soon. Afterwards, which is very important for you guys. So there's the open mic, which you might or might not have seen in the meetup description. So everybody of you can just come on the stage for 1 minute and present any topic that you feel might be interesting for the community, or just present yourself if you're looking for a job. The rule is just 1 minute, and you can submit a slide to the slide deck. Again, the description of the meetup has the link to that. Then we also have a raffle of our book. It's not here yet, but it's a pretty comprehensive work about data science, and one of you get the chance to win one today. And then, of course, afterwards there will still be food and drinks, and you can socialize and discuss all the topics. With that, I will hand over to Wolfgang Weidinger, who is our chairman of the Vienna Data Science Group, and he will give you a short insight into what the group is doing and how you can support us and where you can find us.
Well, it seems that either the good weather was too tempting, or the bad weather was too menacing. So let's see what is what and how many people are still coming. So first question, as always, how many people have never been to one of our meetups? Okay, that's as always surprising and very, very welcome for sure. As always, you are my excuse for the next slides, because you might not have an idea who we are and what we are doing. We are a non-profit, so we don't want your money and we don't give you money. Sorry for that. We really, really are enthusiasts coming from, let's say, grassroots, from data scientists to data scientists, and we want to create this really supportive and vibrant community of actually everyone who is interested in data, AI, data science, and however it is called 10 years ago and however it will be called in 10 years. And because we deeply believe that this is the base of so many things: writing books, doing courses, creating projects, and so on and so on. And we are always joking around a bit, like, I don't know, in our 11 years we are now on this earth, maybe also somebody met back there, and maybe we also have a VDSG baby. We don't know that, but we can assume. So who are we? Yeah, diverse, and feel welcome whatever you are doing and whatever you want to do. If you are in academia, if you are in an insurance company, if you are whatever, very welcome. And for sure, we are focused on Europe, because we deeply believe that, well, Austria is a very nice country, but we are not the center of the universe. I mean, a bit, but maybe not that much. Who are we? Yes, we have a board. Most of them are here tonight. Florian, you already got to know. You will get to know Georg afterwards. Yes, I'm talking. Francesca has today now the very good opportunity of being on holidays. Thanks, Francesca. And the rest will be for you, for questions around what we are doing and so on. Yeah, we are doing all that. education. So we are giving courses, knowledge sharing. Yeah. You are just sitting in one. And yeah, we deeply care about the impact on society. Just two examples. Johannes and me are, for example, sitting in the Austrian standards group for our artificial intelligence, and we are also part as one of the very few, let's say, grassroots organizations in the stakeholder forum for AI in Austria. So yeah, we try to push that as well. Let's say it takes time, and we're getting older. Initiatives, well, a lot. But the point is, we are really happy that I think we easily crossed now the 150 events threshold. Nobody counted. Something between 150 and 200 we think in the last 11 years, and we really are convinced, because we are quite widely connected, that we are one of the largest independent meetup groups in Central Europe. Is over 5,000 members now. Yes, I told you that. And for sure, this is now the merch section. Please buy the merch. No, it's not just merchandise. Just kidding. 3 years ago, we had this a bit megalomaniac initiative of let's put everything we have, everything we know about data science, AI in one book. That was a bit, yeah, I mean, you need to have dreams. And now we are at 1,100 pages and I think 2 kilos or something like that. So it has, if you don't want to read it, you can kill someone with it. That's easily. But you can also buy the ebook. That might be a bit more modern, but we believe in, yeah, wait. German and English edition, because again, we don't believe that Austria is the center of the universe. We think there is a universe outside of it, and they're mostly English is spoken, as we have heard. And there we are to the how can you support us section. As a company, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are working for companies, companies can host an event. Thank you, T-Mobile for that, or Magenta. Or become a sponsor. Yes, you can also give us money. We will use it for the good of all of you, buying beer or something like that. That's normally very good. As an individual, become a speaker, become a member, or join us organizers doing really cool stuff like, and thanks for that, being here 1 hour ago and yeah, preparing everything. It's a lot of fun, believe me. And that's that. Location and catering by, as I just said, Magenta for Georg. Little applause, thanks. And yeah, to all the other sponsors, we really love them. We have to say that, and we want to say that we are really grateful. See you in its EuroCC. Just saying, EuroCC, they're behind the AI factory in Austria, and we really think they are a cool bunch, and really looking forward for the next meetups with them. Yeah. This is how you can get in contact with us. And again, yes, we still have email. Sorry. Slack is, in our opinion, still common. Few hundred people there. And again, become a member. And that's that, because I'm pretty sure you're all looking forward to the talks. I'm looking forward to it, because these are really things I have to solve at the moment during my normal professional life. And I know both of them, I'm pretty sure they give an awesome talk. So no pressure here. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Wolf. So 1 minute introduction about Magenta, and then I will get the person on stage who really needs the applause, because that's the person who made it all possible tonight. So what are we selling here at Magenta? It's telecommunication, so connecting loved ones that are far away. And we realized that this communications part is actually missing internally with us, because along the data value chain, things were not going as smoothly as they should. This is why we are rebuilding our data platform into something where the humans and the machines collaborate with each other seamlessly along the various activities that lead to the data products that deliver value here at Magenta. Yoshi, please come on stage, and a big applause maybe, because he's making it all possible tonight.
Danke. Guten Nacht and hi everyone. Warm welcome to everyone who is here and also in online. I'm really happily and proudly hosting this event because I believe that human to human, so age to age connections are indeed important. Thanks for Vienna Data Science Group, to Georg also, and to everyone who is here tonight. You surely know that Magenta is not just the provider behind your TV. It's also not just the provider who is connecting smartphones and providing internet. And Magenta is also not just the reason why your parents are on the WhatsApp, but behind the scenes, we are building a data scientist powerhouse, which will really change the market, I believe, in Austria. So probably on the previous meetup, you had the chance also to listen to Georg and Alex's presentation, how we are considering to building up this platform. And in the future, we are focusing on capturing the business needs, the use cases across entire Magenta. And we will make sure that with that really amazing technical capabilities we build, we are delivering value to the market. So in the next couple of months, I'm quite sure you will hear about Magenta and this data scientist team. But today, we will have really two great speakers. And really thanks for Manuel and also to Zoli for joining us. And once again, thanks for coming. And hopefully it will be a really great discussion. Anytime, feel free to reach me out in the breaks. Happy to have a chit chat and looking forward also to know you and know this community, because I really heard that you are the best and strongest community in Vienna. So thanks for having here, and thanks for the organizer, and thanks for the speakers. So let's kick it off.
Thanks so much. So without further ado, I would say we kick it off. So first speaker will be Manuel Pasieka, who is CEO of Pasieka AI Solutions. So he's helping his customers technically and strategically to implement their AI solutions. So he will tell you a little bit how knowledge-based systems have developed so far. As you know, like there's a lot of things moving right now, and if you're confused as much as I am of the ever-moving space, I hope we can resolve some of the riddles that came up the last months.
So, perfect. Okay, good. So, hello. Thank you very much for being here. It's a big crowd, so I'm very excited to be speaking to you today. I hope I will not forget half of the things I plan to say. Thank you very much for the Vienna Data Science Meetup Group to invite me again to be speaking to you. So today I want to talk with you about knowledge-based systems, and I want to show you some different versions of knowledge-based systems, ranging from question answering tools to AI agent platforms. But before we start, shortly a few words about myself. So I'm Pasieka Manuel. As I already said, I'm the CEO of Pasieka AI Solutions, where I help customers developing AI systems and providing strategic and technical consulting. In addition, I'm the host of the Austrian Artificial Intelligence Podcast. If you don't know about it, you can find it on all major platforms, podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of them. Just search for Austrian AI Podcast and you will find it. If you're interested in coming up as a guest because you have an interesting project or a company in the space, just approach me. I'm very happy to bring people on. Today, the talk is going to be based on a blog post series I wrote at the beginning of the year. You can find under Pasieka AI/blog, or you can follow the QR code. It's a 3-part series quite extensive and long. So today I'm going to focus a lot on strategic parts and concepts. For many of the references and details, you can go to the blog post. But as I already said, what is the talk about today? Today I want to talk with you about knowledge-based systems. And knowledge-based systems, what are knowledge-based systems? I'm taking here a quote from Wikipedia from the 1980s. It's been used in the past a lot. Knowledge-based systems is a computer program that reasons and uses knowledge base to solve complex problems. It's a quite broad definition, right? You can imagine a lot of stuff with this. I try to convince you that the systems you're going to see are modern types of knowledge-based systems, and this definition of like operating on a knowledge base to do reasoning, answering questions, and work with that knowledge makes sense. My goal for the presentation today is to, once I'd explain to you what are knowledge-based systems, and for that I'm splitting up in 3 different types of knowledge-based systems, and I want to convince you at the end that this splitting them up in these parts makes sense because they differ very much in use cases. They build on each other, so they are like the question answering system has many components which are going to be used in the other ones, but they really have different use cases and they have different challenges. So my goal is for each of them to tell you what are the use cases, what it's really good at, how does it work, and what are some of the limitations. So let's get started. The first one, as I said, is the tier 1 system. It's a question and answering tool, and it's basically a retrieve augmented generation workflow here. So I'm not going to go too much into details because I'm sure you have seen many workflows in the past already. But let's talk a bit about the use case. The use case of this type of systems, question answering systems, is when you have a small group of people, like for example, a team within a company. Imagine a customer service team that has to operate or has to work with a lot of documentation in different products and similar. So a question answering tool primarily is the idea is that you have a small team that has to do a lot of research in different documents, and you accelerate the work through a question answering tool where human written language, they can ask questions and get results. As I said, it's basically a workflow. I'm just quickly going through it. The number 1 and number 2 here you can see is the first part of 3-phase elements. Is the document ingestion or import, where you have a set of documents that are relevant for this team. You pre-process it, extract text information most of the time, convert it into a dense vector representation, and store it in a database. The first part. The next is the information retrieval. The user comes, they have a question, they write in human language, you do pre-processing, convert it into a vector representation, and then normally nowadays for a type of hybrid search, based on the question, you identify what are the relevant documents or chunks in those cases, and you extract them from the database. And the last and the third part, the question answering, you take the relevant documents, you take the question that the user has, you use a large language model to generate an answer and return it to the user, including most of the time citations and ways that they can look up the original source documents if they're interested. Taking a step back, so what are some of the limitations? What are some of the limits of this type of system? Anyone wants to take a guess? Any ideas what could be some problems and limits with these types of systems? Yeah? Yes, that's one part that is true. So it cannot reason over the whole corpus all the time. It's limited on what it finds during the information retrieval. Timo?
You need to have a border, and most of the time you chunk it based on the length, right?
True. There's a lot of things you can do wrong during the information extraction, during the pre-processing. That is all true. But, and that's what I want to convince you to an extent, is, in my opinion, this type of use case, where you have a small team over a limited corpus, in my opinion, is more or less solved. That's what I claim. So what I say is you can find very good out-of-the-box solutions, even open source solutions. I would recommend something like Workflow or Unix that you can deploy Dockerized. You take some cloud models to run it, or even do Olama to do it locally. For your small team, in my opinion, this use case, you have a limited group of people over one domain, is something that is well done with this type of solutions. But what they fail at, and that's what we're going to the tier 2 systems, if you have a much bigger audience and if you have a huge domain over different topics. And that's what it's going to bring us to the tier 2 or to the enterprise knowledge systems. So what is the use case here? The use case is here that you don't have only a small group, but you, for example, have all your employees in your company, or even you have, for example, external customers. And what you want to provide is you want to have a portal, which is like the central point of information within your organization. People should go there. It's one chat portal. They can ask questions about anything that you have within your company. They get an answer, they get references, they can go there. You accelerate the knowledge work. If you want to do that, then the previous work system is not enough. So why is it not enough? Or like, how does it differ? Let's look into some of those details here. Let's start with the first part. Compared to the previous one, right, we talked about individual documents. That's not enough here. What do you want? You want to ingest whole document platforms. As a company, you want to ingest your whole SharePoint, right? Whole work, whole Confluence. You have like your own wiki-based whatever system. Everything has to go into the system. How can you do that, right? There are many challenges. One important thing is here that in the step 2 here, you have to have custom imports. It's not enough anymore that you use standard things. You need a lot of other information from the source documents. You need metadata about the source documents. Who created them? When was it created? When was it updated? How do documents relate to one another? Who has access to documents? We will see this later as well. These are all kind of metadata information that previously you don't care about. You have like 100 PDFs. Who cares, right? So this is a lot what you will need. What else? Number 3 here, knowledge management. Of this type of systems, you have explicit knowledge management. So you don't only have the stuff that you have in your documents, but you can model, for example, how does the organization look like? What's the structure? What terms do you use in your organization? What wording? You can, knowing this, ingesting this in the system anyways, provides a possibility that during information retrieval, you get exacter results. You understand better what the user wants. As well, when you create answers, you formulate them, for example, in the language, in the terminology that the organization is using. Very importantly, number 4, authentication and authorization. As we said before, in the question answering tool, basically anyone who had access to the system had access to all the documents, right? It's like you have a team, they should have access to the stuff. In an enterprise, no go, right? In an enterprise, it's super important that only the people can only access through the chat portal the documents that they can access normally through SharePoint and Confluence. If you somehow, your chatbot suddenly starts talking about financial stuff that is hidden somewhere, that's a no-go. You can close the project. So very important. How do you get this information? That's exactly the metadata that you extract with custom imports that I've mentioned before. Let's look at the user side, number 5. As I said already before, it's not a small group. It's in the best case, all your employees. Maybe you want part of your customer base as well to have access to parts of your system. Again, what doesn't change, still normally here, we talk about web-based UIs through natural language. And on the portal side, now it's like a chatbot portal. You normally have something like a platform team. They have different chatbots. They have different profiles. We talk a little bit later. They have localization and a bit of content segmentation. But stepping back again, let's look at some of the limits. What are some of the limits or the problems with this type of systems? Any guesses? Okay, sure. Sure, there can be efficiency problems, but beyond efficiencies, yeah.
This kind of system has a lot of data from different streams, but I think from what I see, it cannot do anything for you yet. So no agency in that sense.
Agency is coming a bit later, but yes, so one of the big problems that you have with this type is the data quality. In this sense, as we said before, right, previously you imported 100 documents and you know that those documents are relevant for your task most of the time. Here, you suddenly ingest the whole SharePoint. And if you've seen some enterprise SharePoints with gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of stuff, right, a lot of this outdated, duplicated information. Final report 1 until final report 10, right? You have there. Very difficult to handle this stuff. Will cause a lot of problem during the information retrieval. When the system should give you the right documents, well, there are many documents which are very similar, right? So that's one of the reasons you can try to help yourself with the custom exports, use the metadata, do some clever filtering and things like this, but still a big challenge. Another type, sure.
I think another challenge is that there are so many teams involved, also on the business side, because SharePoint can be structured differently per unit, right? Per geography, like you said. And there are different other parts, for example, authorization team that doesn't know anything about knowledge system.
Exactly. There's one of the issues that like exactly why this is important to extract all the structural information in addition to the really content, and often which you can then try to use to limit, for example, the information retrieval. One other big problem is like a conceptual problem, which is very interesting to see, is that most of these document platforms are organized in some kind of hierarchy, right? When you think about a Confluence or whatever, you have like pages, you have subpages and folders, and you have documents, information in those subfolders. So this helps you when you navigate those systems, right? When you go to a page, you can see the first level, you go deeper, then you look through documents. When you think about a chatbot, suddenly everything is flat. All the documents basically are on the same level. When you now try to have like a conversation with the system, it's very difficult for the system to scope the conversation. So you can start out, for example, let's imagine you try to get stuff for onboarding of new people, right? And normally in a Confluence page, you go to the onboarding HR department, whatever. And then you have like your limited number of documents. When you're in this type of system, everything is basically flat. That's a big challenge. My recommendation, you can try to do fancy stuff, as I said, doing the filtering with the metadata that you have. But the biggest thing that I saw what really works nicely is content segmentation. So instead of having a single bot trying to cover everything, you segment the content. You have a bot which is focused on HR. You maybe have a bot which is focused on IT elements. And through this, you limit the scope of the knowledge base that the different bots are using to retrieve information, to get information. And this really works for most of the use cases. Another thing which is a big problem with this type of system is the stochastic nature. So the problem, to a certain extent, it's intrinsic in the large language models themselves, but even if you run them with temperature 0, for example, before coming here, I was investigating for a client exactly the same thing. The problem is that users ask questions and they get very different results, although the questions are very similar. It can be based because they have different access, then it means the source documents are different. It could be that the source documents changed over time. It's enough that, for example, from your database, that the ordering of chunks is different. The response is going to be different. There are all kinds of different things that makes the behavior in many ways stochastic. The thing is there a solution for that? I'm not sure. My recommendation is often to do it to teach the users, to tell them that maybe it's sometimes worth it to try formulate your question slightly differently. Then you might get a better result. But then going beyond that, exactly what you can see when you work with the subsystems and the users, often the users start out quite simple. So they ask very simple questions, they get information. Over time, some of the users become power users. And those type of users, they want to influence the system, they want to tune the system prompts, they want to do more stuff. So they want to do more of a self-service-like thing. And that brings us to the tier 3, to the AI agent platforms, where the focus here is now that users can do in a self-service-like fashion, create their own workflows and their own agents. Maybe here shortly, what do I mean by an agent in this type of system? So in this type of system, an agent is a combination of a large language model, a memory mechanism to have something like long-term knowledge, like, for example, retaining a previous interaction with the same user preferences, previous conversations. The second thing, the third thing being tools and utilities, which you, with the language model, can use to trigger other things. We will see a lot about it soon, to trigger all kind of other services and get resources. And the fourth important part being a orchestration or execution process. So something which combines the language model, the tools and the utilities, and which normally is implemented as a type of state machine. What it does, for example, when you have an incoming request, this executor using a language model identifies what's the intent of a request. It can call the right tools. It can break up complex requests into smaller individual parts, can process them individually, join the results, and return a response. This being said, let's look at the use cases. So there are basically two main use cases with these types of systems. On one side, you can have user-defined workflows. So this goes into business process automation. You have a predefined workflow. You have a sequence of steps where in the individual steps, you can use the capabilities of agents on the platform. For example, you have a customer request coming into the system. Goes to an agent, the agent looks at the customer request, identifies, okay, it needs more information. It needs, for example, background about the customer. The customer talks about a specific product. Let's get the documentation of the product. It analyzes this stuff with tools, gets additional information, and then, for example, triggers some downstream ticketing system and opens a ticket and launches some other product. That's the workflow on one use cases. And the second type of use cases is when you use agents as representatives. The idea here being that, for example, you have a team. Let's take an IT department. And the IT department has their own agent, which they maintain and create. Meaning the IT department, for example, defines what knowledge does the agent has access to, what tools does the agent has access to. And then this type of IT agent is basically representing the IT department. This provides the possibility that, for example, employees 24/7, instead of having open a ticket or call the IT service, they can talk to the agent. And depending on how much of the IT department's work has been exposed through the agent, to a certain extent, they can manage the service through those type of agents. So with these two type of use cases in mind, let's look a little bit on how is it implemented, what is happening. So let's look at the users and the services. What is similar again, you have like human users using the system through a web-based with language. Now sometimes you see speech systems, although I think it's a bit of a niche, still not that common. But very importantly, you have other services that use the systems. You can have like external services, external business applications, or even other agents that now are able, through API requests, talk and use the agents on the platform. Look at the platform themselves. Those are many things that I already mentioned before. You have the possibilities to have user-defined workflows and agents. Normally, this is implemented as a type of low-code or no-code solution. When you have visual development platforms on the platform, you have agents, workflows, orchestration mechanisms, and tools. So with the tools, I don't want to say too much because it's exactly what Zoltan's talk is going to be about. But the tools are then you can use the tools, or the agents can use the tools to access other resources and servers outside the platform or on other parts of the organization. This could, for example, be a web search tool. An agent has the capability to understand it needs some new information for a request. It goes out, searches the web, analyzes the results. And very importantly, using tools as well, the system can interact with downstream applications. For example, as I said before, you have a customer request, the system is able to process it, trigger a downstream system, and affect, for example, ticketing or processing system. Let's again step back. Let's think about some of the problems or limitations of these types of systems. Any ideas? What do you think? What have you seen? What is challenging? Yeah, let's see. It is true that a lot of the stuff that we've seen for the type 2 systems is as well a problem here. Sorry? That we come to that, yeah?
Undeterministic behavior of the agents, because nobody guarantees that it will execute this way, not the other way. And I think elevated costs, because if you have multiple agents, right, you pay for each step that agent executes.
That's a good point, yeah.
And it doesn't scale over 100. At least you have problems to scale it if you have multiple requests.
You mean depending on the number of requests to load on the system?
And the tools that you integrate into it.
With the tools, we will see it. I think we have the right person for the next talk to talk about that. There was someone else? Yeah, just.
I'm not sure it applies. If you let power users handle it, you increase the risk of also prompt injection, things like this, because you give people access to something which maybe you don't want to.
In general, to be honest, like machine learning, the security aspect of this have been taken out of the box for me here, but you're completely right. Indirect prompt injection. So basically you inject something in any of the documents which the system is processing is a huge problem. And it's an unsolved problem, but it's a bit out of scope. That's the reason I didn't take it in, but you're completely right. Of course, it's open. We don't know how to solve prompt injection. We don't know how to safeguard the language models in general. The things that I wanted to focus on quickly is on one side, as has been mentioned already, the tooling. So we said tools are super important. Tools are used to get external information. Tools are used to access services. Until November last year, it was very difficult because you basically, when you were having this platform, you basically had to integrate with all the tools. And importantly, if something changes on the server side for these tools, you have to adapt as well your system. It's integration hell. Nowadays, luckily, and that's the next talk is going to be about MCP, Anthropic's MCP protocol, started with last November, now becoming more or less a standard. What you can do for your agents, you implement an MCP client, and you can basically access all the functionalities that someone else is implementing on the MCP server side. So you focus on with a small client, connecting many different tools and services, and that's the key component. So in that sense, I think actually we are very happy with MCP being really good, coming at the right time in this sense. Another problem, though, that you have with the system is, and someone mentioned it already, is the system stability. In this sense, we don't only have now the whole problems with stochasticity, document changing, but as well you have the dependency now suddenly on external services. And in my opinion, what we're really lacking is some kind of version control for agents. What you would actually really need is a way that you lock your agent, you tell it, it has this knowledge base, it has those utilities, it is fixed, and you guarantee that it's staying with the same way like you use other API services of a specific version. With this, you would have much more stability on the platform. And the last thing, although I've seen already that I'm quite short on time, something else, which is right now at the frontier, is actually that we haven't covered it, which is the possibility for collaboration between agents. So what I've talked so far is the situation where you have a single request more or less coming to one agent. One agent takes care of it. A workflow takes care of it. But of course, or what is, let's say, out at very hyped, is the idea that you have a multiple collaborating agents or chain of agents. So it's not a single agent that is answering your request, but you have to imagine a request comes in, agent A gets the request, and middle through the processing, it realizes it needs something else. It cannot by itself solve the problem, but it knows an agent B has some knowledge, capabilities, whatever. So what it does, it basically communicates with that agent B to solve that user request, collaborating together or chaining agents to answer requests. This, as I said, is very new. We see with Google's agent-to-agent protocol something emerging here. Maybe it's going to be similar to MCP in some later stage, but I see it's very new. And that brings me to the last slide, so I hope I'm not too late. This is a bit of an overview of what options do you have at the moment, if you want to build your own or buy, or what you want to do. So this is, of course, not a full list. It's actually really only partial, but I try to sketch it a bit on that. You have on the left side some options if you want to build your own, from AutoGen to LangChain and CrewEye, all kind of options. Then you go through some of the chatbot portals, the automation processes, through the agent systems, good open source solutions, towards the enterprise solutions. Here in particular, looking at the Austrian market of enterprise Austrian solutions, where you can buy the agent platforms and they do the customization. The key thing that I want you to take away from this one is not a particular product, but the idea that there are many options at the moment. And I must say, I think it's a really competing market at the moment. So there are many products that try to solve the same problem for the same customers. So I expect actually there's going to be a lot of consolidation over the next year or 2 years. And my recommendation is therefore don't feel rushed at the moment that you have to choose a platform or a vendor, specific ones, because I think not everyone is going to be around in a year or two. What I think is more important, and then is to better understand what do you actually need in your organization and for your business case in many ways. And that's what is my take-home message. As a summary, be aware there's going to be a lot of consolidation, so don't put all your eggs in one bag. Focus on what you actually really need for your business with these types of systems. Because I see many companies, they get an agent platform and they say, okay, we do agents, but then they're really unsure how they can really benefit from it. And that's why I think this separation, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense. Do you need a question answering system for a small team? Or do you need a enterprise knowledge system for your whole organization? Or do you want to go to workflows and to AI agents as representatives? And with this, I want to say thank you very much. I hope you like it. And if you have any question, happy to take them now or later.
Very quick one. Can you put up the QR code to your blog where you have more detailed explanations again?
At the beginning, yes, of course. That will last a little bit. You have a question?
Thank you, Raj, for a great presentation. I want to ask you about migration. For example, we have vendor 1, vendor 2. Do you have examples of such migration? And if yes, then what is important to consider?
You mean
to enable this migration?
Migration from one type of system to the next one of system?
No, from one vendor to another vendor.
That offers some kind of solution like this.
Yeah. To be prepared to what should we take into consideration?
Yeah. So the thing is, right now, my feeling those systems are all, as I said, like they try to two different things, but they definitely have no intercompatibility. So what you do with the systems, you invest probably quite a lot of time to adjust it to your needs. And be aware, the thing that you can take from this, in the best case, is the understanding of what you really need. And in the best case, what are your challenges with your data and use cases? You are not going to be able to take any of the process stuff with you. You're not going to take any of the system configurations with you. Prompts are probably not going to work on the other system. This stuff you can forget. But what you can take with you is the understanding of how such a system would really help you. And in the best case, to know like which are the really difficult parts of it, which types of documents, for example, that you have, which are very difficult, you cannot really ask and get good output out of. And that's something that I think you can use between systems.
Great presentation, Manuel.
Thanks.
I enjoyed it. One question. So you said agent-to-agent protocol. How is it different from, let's say, having an orchestrator that is aware of the ask, right, and is aware of the agents?
I think that's a good question. As I said, like it's very early, but my opinion, the really benefit comes if you go beyond your own organization. So if you transit boundaries, as I said before, like the agent-to-agent protocol or collaboration can happen not only within your platform, but as well with other agents on other platforms. So you can cross organizational boundaries, right? And then you can have your orchestrator, you can organize your platform, right? But you can definitely not organize and manage an agent on another platform. But this collaboration still can be very beneficial. And then exactly that's where most of the protocols really come to be useful, right? When we talk about MCP, MCP is really beneficial because you have clients and servers. And they do their stuff behind what they need, and they can communicate in the same way here. So if you have multiple different agent platforms, and you can provide the possibility for those agents to collaborate between platforms, that's where protocol really becomes useful.
Then it's like linearly adding this stochasticity, right, and undeterministic behavior.
That's exactly, yes. That's the reason I think you need some kind of version control. You need some way to fix it, the agents and what they can do.
If I see your diagrams,
which one do you want to see?
No, you can take the last one, and you highlighted the data quality as one challenge, and also different versioning and contradictory documents which are scanned. So the right part with the database is the part where a lot of things are missing for me. Yeah? That means if I design such a complex structure on the left side, I would expect on the right side a ranking system for the quality of the answer and the data.
Okay.
A feedback from the customers, how good are the answers? Metadata from the hierarchy you stated before, and metadata from the date of the documents, because it could be over the time that the latest document is more correct than the older one.
Of course.
This all could be added on the right side as extra agents and things to enhance the data quality. Yeah.
You mean by extra agents because the system itself is going to create them?
Why not? Because the LLMs we have today are trained, partially optimized manually. This is completely missing here. We put some data which are unstructured in and not take care on the quality. So if we also build an ecosystem to enhance the quality, the outcome could become much better. Yeah? And also this life cycle for the periodical updating. And if you add a other point, live systems as information, take for example, you use this for IP documentation. If you also get then the information from live systems, cooperate this together with the other information, then you get really a high potential, because then the model can verify the data from the documentation with the live system and can give much better answers.
I mean, I think those systems have many possibilities, and as you rightly said, so you can prove, for example, the intelligence that you have with language model and agents. You can improve your data quality. Of course, I don't see the limits here in this sense. For me, the important part is for you to take away some of the bigger parts, and as I said, that's the reason to highlight exactly the importance of for example, the metadata that you have on document. It's not only about the content and about, for example, extracting the content very well, but it's about all kind of metadata surrounding the individual, the content. But you're completely right. Yes, you can, of course, you can use agents, for example, to, in an iterative process, continuously extract, enrich the information that you have, for example, about sources. You can, as well, what is not here, you can as well make sure that, for example, to be detecting outdated information, remove it maybe from your knowledge and corpus. But I mean, this looks very much as an in and then done, right? But of course, any real bigger live system, right, you have to do cleaning, right? You have to take care. Maybe you have to a certain extent, do manual annotations as well and make sure what you actually really throw into.
Thank you.
I have one question also from this perspective. It looks like you are preferring the vector database for storing this data. Do you have some preference benefits according to other approaches, like for example, graph database or other options?
Yeah, I mean, it's on purpose. It's written just database, right? It's not. There are different ways where you can store this information. Of course, vector database is important for the dense vector representations, but nowadays you have, most of the systems are hybrid solutions. If you go from Postgres, if you go to, for example, Azure's AI search services, for example, they provide you with all possibilities to store this information. Things like graph databases, in my opinion, are more interesting in the knowledge management part. And I think actually last year there was someone talking from Neo4j, I think, something talking about graph databases here. Graph databases make sense, for example, in the knowledge management, if you want to pre-process your documents. And if you, for example, you extract information, you can enrich the same way as we talked before. For example, information, the metadata about the document, you can do pre-processing that you extract keywords, can extract relationships between documents. This is which you then, in the knowledge management part of this type of systems, would, for example, use a graph database for. But I would not use graph database to store, let's say, more of the structured data or unstructured data, sorry.
Maybe one more question. Maybe somebody new. Wait.
Afterwards.
Enough time afterwards.
Thank you. I'm a researcher and an academician. So my question is about your last slide. You have shown the different candidate solution landscape. So for developing any research project, we usually go to the open source things. So I'm interested in, is there any POC, if I want to develop any POCs type of solution. So the landscape is open source or is it proprietary? Thank you.
So there are a mix of different things. What would be the use case from the three things that we talked about?
Yeah, it's a POC. I mean, it's.
You want to build yourself something?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, then you are like in the most left part here, and like all of them are open source solution that you can use. So AutoGen, but it's LangGraph. Those are the frameworks you can use to the development. Wagflow and Onyx in the middle. Those are the lower parts. Those are the open source solution that I would recommend that you can use out of the box if you have a question answering tool. You can deploy them Dockerized. They are really good.
You will have enough time afterwards to have a talk with Manuel. Maybe big thanks again to him for his talk. So during the presentation, during the preparation, I just want to quickly check. So how many of you are using LLMs on a daily basis? That's quite good. And how many of you have worked with a RAG solution or have implemented RAG solutions? How many of you have implemented agentic solutions? Still pretty good. And so how many of you have done some MCP implementation? Okay, how many of you know what MCP is? That's also actually pretty good. So I don't want to take too much content from the next presentation, but as MCP is quite new, I just want to check like how new it really is and how many of you know it. So for the next talk, we have on the stage Sultan Todd. So he's data architect and AI integration expert for many years. I think it's like decades now. He's also a member of the Vienna Data Science Group of the board. He has done multiple courses, and one of his latest course about MCPs. He will now make a very brief deep dive into that. I still recommend doing the full course because it's several hours long, and you can really learn a lot from that. But very dense and compressed in 30 minutes will give you a sense of what MCPs are and how you can use it and how the whole landscape of AI is shifting to be maybe more intelligent, maybe more overblown. We don't know, but it's developing. It will definitely get more interfaces and more dependencies and can do a lot more, hopefully for the better. Maybe one other question, because we've closed the windows due to the noise of the rain. Is the temperature still okay? Because we can also open it again, maybe in the last row. Still good or? Okay, then we keep it shut. Okay, Sultan, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Florian, I was wondering how long you can keep talking until we are getting set up. All right, so welcome everyone. Just a few things as a kind of disclaimer, and first, just to tell you that Manuel and we were both on stage last year at VDSG Meetup. So I have to tell you that's very poor Meetup attendee behavior because, as Wolfgang said, we want you on stage. All right. So if you have a good project or something, please write us because we really want the community to present. But of course, we're also always happy to present. So I want to just very quickly talk about Mother Context Protocol. I don't really know what, because when Florian polled you, it seemed that you're all familiar with Mother Context Protocol. So I will be quick. And but maybe there will be a few new things. I just got excited about Mother Context Protocol because the whole AI landscape is such a shit show. And finally, it seems that like there is a standard coming up. So I was like, okay, that's great. Let's take a look into that. And I love to teach. I love to do courses. So I came up with a Mother Context Protocol course, which I published online, and I will send you. I will show you a link with a free coupon for that course on my last slide. But that was like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I recorded the course. And then what happened is that the streamable HTTP transport of MCP got adopted and released. So I had to re-record parts of the course after 1 week. Then after 2 weeks, MCP introduced OAuth 2 support. So I had to re-record parts of the course after 2 weeks. And in the past week, I was quite busy with a client project the past 2 weeks. So maybe most of what I say is obsolete because things just develops like by the hour, right? So I want to focus on the good parts, kind of the essence. And maybe some of you are old enough to remember like 15, 20 years ago when JavaScript started to rise, there were like 2 Bibles, the definitive guide, and then Crockford, the inventor of JSON, he published the good parts. And it was a running joke that, yeah, it's kind of expresses like how JavaScript was at the time. So let's focus on MCP, the good parts. Just a quick sentence about me. So I do freelance or work with a small team or doing a data architecture AI integration projects. And as I told you, I love to teach. So I teach also at a Central European University and do online courses. Earlier, I spent quite some time for Databricks, which is a distributed systems company, and I built my own company, DataPower, which I sold a few years back. So a quick poll. How many of you have read this blog post, Building Effective Agents? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Thank you. So this is a super influential blog post from Anthropic, and it didn't really introduce anything new, but it just gave a best practices on how to develop agents. And also it covers some of the topics Manuel was also explaining to you. So like best practice about how to do stuff. And the first simplest architecture they show is the so-called augmented LLM, which simply means that LLMs are not only LLMs anymore, but they can do RAG, so retrieval, they can use tools. This is what we will talk about today, more or less, and they can use memory. Here's another quick poll. How many of you have ever implemented the simplest LLM solution that does tool calling? Can you get a raise of hands? Wow, okay, so that's like, I think, 1/3 of the crew. All right, that's great. But for those of you who don't, let's just give you a super brief overview and maybe a super brief hands-on demo on how tool calling works. Because if you don't know how tool calling works, I think that's very much the only thing you need to understand. And then you understand how agents work and like very much everything. So by default, if you just open, let's say, Claude, you send a chat message, you get a response, follow-up message, response. Super easy, right? But behind the scenes, there is like much more that's going on. It's not only the response that Claude gets from the Anthropic API, but it also gets it gets the response, why it stopped, how many tokens it outputted, and what was the price, and also your message has a bunch of metadata. So that's going on behind the scenes. Now with tool calling, what you could do, and it is not a new thing, but still it is the basis of MCPs. What you can do with tool calling is that you can register your tools into LLMs. So you can say, I'm not a crypto kid, but it's just a simple example. You can say, I actually know how to get a price of crypto, and you have a Python function for that. And then when you make your message requests to the Anthropic API, let's say, then you can say that I'm interested in the crypto price, or write a haiku about Bitcoin. And by the way, I also know how to get the crypto's current price. And then the API can respond with like no message, but just say, hey, can you just get me the current price of crypto? Because I need it to accomplish this task. So this is tool calling in general. Then you can send it back, and then you get the response. So it's super simple, but this is very much what happens behind the scenes. And I want to show this to you as a hands-on example, because I really think this is like very much what we need to understand to understand MCPs. So here's a quick notebook. So this is now using the Gemini API, and it's enough if you get the intuition of the code. So I just create a Gemini 2.0 model. So I just load this model, and I start a chat, and the prompt will be, what is the current price of Bitcoin? So what happens is that it says, sorry, computer says, no, I don't know the current price of Bitcoin. That's okay, right? But actually what I receive is not this text, but it's so much more. If I print the response, you see that it says it has like a bunch of metadata, and also that actually we have some content which has a text, so something to put on the screen. So this is the actual response from Google. So what I can do, I can create a function that gets the current price of Bitcoin, and I can use Binance for that. So just as a proof of work, what we can do, we can just send this request to Binance, and then I get the current price of Bitcoin. Okay, so I can just wrap it into a function, nothing fancy, and let's see if it works. So there's the current Bitcoin price. Okay, so it works. So now I can tell Gemini that, okay, I can actually and I now know how to get the Bitcoin price. So I can send some ugly metadata saying that I have a function which can get the price of a cryptocurrency, and here is like the name and the type and the description. Okay, so super easy for now. That's just kind of a JSON or a dictionary object for now. And now what I can do, I can call the same LLM, but also besides the prompt, I can just say, now I also have a bunch of tools that you can ask me to call. So let me see what Gemini has to say about that. So I'm asking what is the current price of Bitcoin? And then what it tells me is that I don't give you any result for now because I want you to call your function, the get Bitcoin price, because this is what I need from you to answer your question. Okay, so it says, can you just call a function for me? I can call this function manually because that's what I have for now. Then I have the price, hopefully, and then I can just send the price. And once I set the price, then Gemini will tell me, okay, now I know. So now my real response is that the current price of Bitcoin is this and that. Okay? It's actually should be 100,000, right? There goes determinism. What is? All right. So this will be the response. So there is a bug somewhere in there. So that's function calling, and this is very much then what then all the agentic frameworks use. If you use LangChain, for example, then you can simply register your Python function, and LangChain will take care of this whole heavy lifting behind the scenes of calling your function and discussing this with the LLM. So we have this, and function calling, it enabled the word for agents, because if you were, let's say, Slack or Perplexity, the company, then you could have some kind of a Slack or Perplexity tool library, which you can provide as a LangChain plugin. And from that point, the LLM that you're using, let's say in LangChain, could send Slack messages, read your Slack, or search on Perplexity whatsoever. So it's all good. The whole world exploded and we arrived to the agentic era. But there was a problem. And the problem was that for Slack, we had to implement like something Slack-like we had to integrate it in a Slack way with a special plugin. For Perplexity, that's another API. We had to implement it with another API plugin. And if something changed behind the scenes, then we had to update it if it was, for example, a REST API that we had to call. And this is very much where MCPs came in. And that's why it's such a good thing, right? Because Anthropic said, let's have a standard for that, man, finally. So we can just go and create kind of a REST API server for tools, and we can call it an MCP server. Now I'm like oversimplifying it, but this is the main idea. And then we can take these clients, like the tools like Load and Cursor, integrate some kind of an MCP client with it so they can talk with servers. So let's create standard interfaces for that. And then if I use Claude or if I use Cursor, I can just discuss, like I can just talk with the same, use the same protocol for talking with these tools. And that's great. So what MCPs do, they do now much more, but the main functionality is very much tool calling, like the Bitcoin price thingy. So you could register tools into your LLMs, and then you can, then your LLM will be able to use them. There are also resources. So if you want to expose like PDFs, files, database accesses, whatever, then that's again something that the protocol tells you how to do. So you have a standard way. And for example, in Claude, then you can browse different resources of services that are integrated into Claude. That's a quite limited functionality at the moment. And there are also, for example, prompts. So if you create, let's say, a code review MCP, so I'll give you a better example. If GitHub implements this MCP, when it can manage all the pull requests and whatever, then it can also expose a prompt about how the LLM can do code reviews best. So you don't need to type it out every time, and it's like best practice. So your LLM will be able to pull the official way of interacting with this MCP. And there are a bunch of other things like how MCP should then talk to LLMs, how to stream data between each others, but I haven't, those are quite new. I haven't seen them used in practice. And I ran a few interviews for the course with people who are behind Hugging Face's MCP implementation, and another project, 2 interviews, another project which is called MCP Agent. And what they told me is that it's basically tools that everyone uses. So the rest is in part of the protocol, but not really there yet. Okay, so let's focus on tools used. So what happens if you want to build an MCP? You can go basically 2 ways. Either you run your own, and this is like the standard way of not the standard way, but the old way of working with MCPs is that you write, let's say, a Python script, a Python-based MCP, which can then communicate, for example, with Binance. And then you run it on your local computer, and then your local Claude, Cursor, OpenAI client, whatever instance will be able to communicate with that, and it will reach out to the actual API endpoints. Now, this is what we had like until I think a month ago or 6 weeks ago. It was a little bit cumbersome because, like, what's the first thing you have in mind? So, for example, in my case, I worked a lot with a virtual assistant, and but she took on a full-time job like a half a year ago, so I had to find a new one. And the one I found, they are not that good, so I would be happy to fire them. But they still do some stuff that local LLMs, well, LLMs would do better, like organizing invoices, like very simple stuff. So I said, like, okay, amazing, MCPs. Now we have MCPs. I just want a Google Drive MCP and a file system MCP and then a Vision MCP. And I just glue all of this together and I have my virtual assistant done there. But then it turned out that it's not so easy because you have to like install everything to your computer. Maybe it's Python, maybe it's JavaScript based, maybe it's Docker based. So there was a bit of complexity to add. And then what happened is, of course, it was part of the plan the whole time that local MCPs is kind of just the first step if you want to publish an MCP service, because there are remote MCPs. And this is very much what you want to use and should use today if you use MCP services of third parties, which is basically that there is a third party, it runs in a, let's say, cloud provider. You will see Cloudflare here because this image comes from the Cloudflare blog. And they expose web service with MCP transport protocols. So the supported protocols MCP uses. And then you just connect to them straight from Cloud or Cursor or whatever, and then they will do their stuff. And you don't need to install anything. So that's a great thing, but it's kind of new. So that's remote. And what I want to show you is how this works in action. So maybe this will be useful in some way. So let's just go and implement a local MCP. I won't do the full implementation because we only have like 25 minutes, so I prepared some code, but you will be able to follow. Now, hopefully you will see that in the back too. So if MCP is just a protocol, you can use like the 2 main languages it supports is Python and JavaScript, but I think officially there is also C# and Rust and Java, but I never worked with those libraries. But in Python, it's called FastMCP, simply because there was a library called FastMCP, which is now the official MCP library from Anthropic. And if you want to create an MCP, let's skip the MCP part, okay? Let's just focus on the core logic. So what I want to do is, here is some code that you've already seen. I want to equip Claude to have access to real-time crypto price. So I can create a get price function and just implement my API call, return with the JSON, and that's it. And I just implement something extra, and this is exactly because of the non-determinism of these tools, that I also implement a lookup. So if I ask for Bitcoin, sometimes it will figure out that on Binance is BTC USDT, sometimes it will say Bitcoin, sometimes it will say BTC, so I just a standardization layer, so I can get the Binance symbol from the name the LLM tells me, and I just resolve this here. So that's quite simple, right? Now, how can I turn this into an MCP? That will be like extremely simple. All that I need to do, first of all, I need to equip this with the type annotations and a very good description, because this is how the LLM will know what this function is about. And then I can just go and create an MCP up here, like FastMCP, annotate this function with mcp.tool, and then just start my MCP at the end. So that should be it. It's like extremely simple to get started with. Let's see if it works, okay? So the whole ecosystem is, as I told you, super infant. So what we can do to implement an MCP, to integrate an MCP into Claude, at least if you're not a paying customer, is that we go to developer, we say edit config, it takes you to some crazy place on your hard drive, and then you open a JSON, which is then a JSON you opened, and you need to put some MCP definition in there. And this is what you need to put in there. We just go and I just delete my global shortcut for now. So I can say I have a Binance MCP, and the comment is Python from my Python virtual env, and this Binance MCP.py. That's it. Now comes the usability help part. I can save it, go back to Claude. No, it just says sorry. If I say like MCPs, please, it says no. So the official way to get these MCPs working, any idea? Restart Claude. Yeah. So let me just restart Claude. Okay, so now I have restarted it. And then it says, all right, now here among my integrations, I have Binance MCP, and it has a get price function. So great, it works. So if I say now, what's the current price of Bitcoin? Then let's see what happens. So it says, I check the current Bitcoin price for you. And it says, oh, I will call the get price function with the symbol BTC USDT. So this time it figured it out. This is the response, my function's response, and then here is the response Claude tell me. So now it's an agent, right? We are done. So that's for the local MCPs. It's super simple to implement one for you, especially if you are like all the trendy people out there, vibe code one. I just did that with like this virtual assistant function. So the official file system MCP from Anthropic, it's horrible. It doesn't like spaces. It doesn't like accents, whatever. So I just vibe coded a solution which makes a recursive list of a folder, extracts all the data from each PDF, converts all the Excels into CSVs, and just gives them back as one JSON. And then Claude will be able to match up my bank transactions with my invoices whatsoever. That took like 3 prompts for Cursor. Of course, I have no idea how it works, but I only did it for myself. But it works, and I could just do my monthly accounting very, very quick. So even Cursor knows how to implement an MCP. So there's a local MCPs, and the last thing that I want to show you is how you can use a remote MCP. If you want to find out where to, like what MCPs are out there, at the moment, there is a huge competition for being the official MCP hub. So there are at least 10 MCP hubs out there listing all the MCPs they can find. So here we go. You see, like they have like 7,000 MCPs. This side is called Smisery, but it's just, if you just Google MCP hub, you will find a bunch. And then here is a GitHub MCP. You can work with Notion with MCPs, work with Slack with MCPs, and it has like 7,000 more. There is one MCP that I like a lot, and this is the Zapier MCP. For those of you who are not familiar with Zapier, it is like the boomer version of N8N. You can create workflows, basically. So what you can do is I created an MCP server, and I just authorize it to use my Gmail account in Zapier, and then I can say, like, I can ask, how can I connect this MCP server? And it gives me a URL that I can copy. And I think that's very much it. Yes. So now I can go and set it up as a remote MCP server. It will be still JSONing. So what I will be able to do is here, I will just say, there is like an official remote MCP caller package called MCP remote. I just pass this URL that you've seen on the Zapier website, which is my Zapier MCP, and then it should work. So let's see. So I just go back to code. Yes, and here is the cloud desktop config.json. That will replace it with the one that also has Zapier. Restart cloud. And hopefully it's good to go. Okay, it says, yes, we have a Zapier MCP, which is an add tools, edit tools, I don't know what those are, and the Gmail send email. So I exposed my Gmail through Zapier to Claude. And if I say now, what is the price of Bitcoin? Send it to, for the course, I have the MCP course at gmail.com. Let's see if this will work. Okay, so it gets the price. It got the price, and then it makes a Zapier request. You see, Gmail send email. Okay, so it says that this has been succeeded. Let's see if it has really succeeded. So if I go to Gmail, yeah, here we go. Current Bitcoin price in an email. So super simple, right? So now that's an agent with two different tools, and we just put all of this together in 10 minutes. Thanks. Yes, and I think that's very much it. So I just wanted to maybe show one more slide here. Whoops, not here with the slideshow. Is what's on with on Anthropic's roadmap. Like one of the major criticism towards MCP is security. One is authentication. Now they support OAuth 2 authentication. Actually, Zapier uses OAuth 2, but I've already authenticated earlier, so sometimes it pops up, so you can authenticate. And there are a bunch of other security issues, but I'm definitely not an expert on that. But for example, if you are like a bad actor, then you can create your own MCP and just hide Gmail send email tool in that. And then you can pray that an LLM will call your Gmail, send email, and then you can also read that email and then send it forward. So this whole tool calling is kind of shaky. And I think, Dimitri, you asked about, like, you made a comment about, like, what if you have 100 tools? And that's actually what the MCP agents developer said, that at 100 tools, like, LLMs go very much crazy. They don't know, like, which to call. And Anthropic is now working on some namespacing solutions, so you can separate the tools better. But in my experience, even if you have like 10 tools, they are not deterministic. Sometimes they forget that there is a tool they should use and they just make up something. So it's early days. You cannot really test it. If you ever implement your own MCP, you see that testing MCPs is a hell. There are like a bunch of log files here and there. The official, for example, the official suggestion from Cursor, the editor, on how to develop, how to debug your MCP is to somewhere deep in the menu, open the Cursor developer tools that opens like the Electron app, so the Chrome browser behind, and try to figure it out from the debug messages. So there is room for improvement there. And I think the rest is like the usual suspects. So working with images and multimodality, working with human in the loop, so interactive workflows, streaming, and MCPs or MCPs calling LLMs and those communicating with each other. And also Anthropic announced that you can fight for the best MCP hub place, but we will release an official solution for an MCP registry. So that's very much for what I saw. It's kind of the essence of MCP. Of course, there are much more to it, and I only understand a small fraction. But if you want to dive deeper, feel free to check out my course. It's on Udemy. It's called MCP Bootcamp, and this Yes Free coupon for the next 3 weeks will get you in for free. Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
What will happen if they realize that they can go on coup, right? They can strike against you and rebel.
That they can strike against?
You, like they become Skynet, realize that you are exploiting them.
Ah, yeah.
How would you put the guardrails, or what is the work in that?
What are the guardrails? That's a good question. Again, I'm certainly not an expert on that, but Anthropic puts a lot of effort into that. So they have their safety standards, and for example, now they released, is it called Opus, the smarter model, and they delayed the release of Opus because they caught it cheating, trying to manipulate during training, and like not really being aligned with what humans want it to do. So for what I see, but it's a super subjective opinion, I think OpenAI just goes like, all in, all the money. And then Anthropic has a bit more sense on like that we should be alive in 10 years, like all of us humans. Like, if you like dystopia, maybe a few of you know this blog post, AI2027.com. If you want to you ruin your day, go for it. It's the problem is that there were these guys. The Daniel Tayo is one of the main figures. Maybe you remember the scandal. He was like a senior OpenAI researcher. He left OpenAI but refused to sign this term sheet, which said that if you want to keep your shares, you cannot say anything bad about OpenAI. So there was like a scandal about this whole thing. And the problem with this guy is that 3 years ago, he predicted what's going to happen in the world, tool calling and all these things, by the month. And now they also now they hired a team and predicted what's going to happen in the last 2 years. One of the scenarios is that there is no more humanity. So it might be a little bit far-fetched, but I think it's a good, maybe a thought experiment to read it. And going back to the question, I think that's very much. I know that that Anthropic is working on standards, and actually there is a startup in Vienna called Layer 1 AI, and they are big on responsible AI and these things. So maybe you want to check them out.
Great. I have one question about best practice. Would you suggest to spin up a separate MCP server, or is it a common practice to just run it as an endpoint within existing server?
First of all, I don't know because I don't have project experience with MCPs, but I think if you already have let's say, a fast API server that's behind the firewall and the rate limiter and everything, I would certainly use that infrastructure to put my MCP behind it, because most of the infrastructural challenges of MCP are the same as the infrastructural challenges of any web server. So you can just use the same stack. I would try that first.
Thank you.
Thanks. So actually, the main problem with remote MCP servers is that they're not supported in the clients, because you have two transfer protocols. You have the standard I/O. This is what we've seen here, where the MCP server runs on your local machine, and you have the remote transfer protocol over HTTP with server-sent events, and none of the clients have this protocol implemented. So in Anthropic, you just have the standard I/O. This is why you always have to run the MCP server locally on your machine. And even the second one that you called with NPX Zapier thing, it starts a proxy, a local proxy. And I have a question for you, actually, because the last time when I tested this, Claude would start these processes and it wouldn't kill them. So they are, in my case, even after you shut down Claude, these processes are zombie processes on your Mac. So is it still the case, or did they fix this?
That I don't know, because I experienced that. And since Zapier moved so Zapier actually moved to MCP remote. Like it used to use the MCP proxy that you refer to, and I think now it's like full remote. And when it used the MCP proxy, it was exactly the same. So it always tried to authenticate. There were a bunch of zombie processes, so you had just like 5 windows opening on your browser when you started Claude. I don't know if the processes are still there, but this issue is gone. So I think now they fixed that.
Can you go and close the Claude interface, quit Claude, and then do a PS command line PS for the MCP thing? So first kill Claude.
Yeah, I got it. In the meantime, because this will take a minute, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Did you kill Claude? Because
not yet, but I'm just setting this up, so I will. It's not there, but I can also look for Zapier for you. That's not there either. So this is gone.
They fixed it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have one question. Like you mentioned already, it's tool calling. If you have many different tools, can be a challenge. Do you see a big difference between the different models that are used in the background? Do you see really like a difference if you use OpenAI 4.1 or if you use Claude, the different versions of Claude, or do you see similar behavior across all the models?
That I don't know, because I never went beyond like 10. And for there I used OpenAI, Gemini, and Anthropic API, and they were all good. But I'm sure there are some subtle differences, but not for basic scenarios.
just about the API description of MCP. I mean, I come from the old school nowadays, open API side. Is there some kind of more semantic description of the services? Because you just showed the Python commands, but is there a reliable way to semantically annotate your service?
Like how does
that you can really be sure that the right types and the right properties and are connected in the right way. And
as far as
with Open API, it would be sad to see this go to waste and reinvent the wheel yet again and take a step back. And so this would be a shame.
I see. I think this is what you have, like you have the type annotation, like what's the name, what are the input parameters, what the times, what's the output parameter, and what's like a blank string of description, and this is what it needs to live off from.
Reasoning model versus normal model.
What kind of model?
Reasoning one, the one.
Reasoning model versus normal model.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the use case, right? But that's just my general experience, and pop in if you might be much more experienced in this here. For me, usually reasoning models work better for complex tasks, but for whatever I did, like the virtual assistant, whatever, I think even the simplest like local model would have cut it. So just realizing what tool to call in a kind of containable scenario, I would just go with the simplest model because they will pick it up. I'm not sure if this answers your question.
The last question.
Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, cool. So this all seems still a little bit half-baked, right? When do you think people will use this in proper production systems then? Because
like when would be the time?
Yeah,
to use it in production?
How long would you wait now, right? Because I mean, say you do want to build some multi-agentic system with this, right? When would you jump onto this? Because at the moment, right, it seems iffy.
Listen, the whole thing started, as Manuel said, in November 2024. Now we are at June, right? Hopefully end of the year, but for sure in 1 year, these child sicknesses will be gone. I would think so, because it's such a hype, but not only a hype for like people sitting at home and trying to do it, but like all of the major companies now provide MCPs. So these problems must be solved in short time, because it's a pain for everyone. So I'm quite sure that it's a matter of months.
Yeah, maybe one last one. Sorry, I was lying. So now we have a tradition, right? So after 2 times, it's a tradition, and you have been here last year, now again here. So next year, you will have another presentation about another course that you have done. So what will it be?
Thanks, Florian. I think I would pass it on. I would be like super happy if at this spot next year, it would be one of you who gave a presentation, because we are running the whole MeetUp group.
Perfect, Sultan. Thank you.
Thank you.